So today's notes are on what are called constructors. I pointed them out to you last time. Constructors are special methods inside of a class that get invoked when you create an object. So I'm going to be back here. Backing up, we use the keyword new when creating objects. Just a reminder, objects are called instances of classes. So you have a class, it's like a blueprint, and every time you make one of these objects using that blueprint, that's called an instance of that class. And when you create an object, Java calls a constructor, which is a special kind of method. Constructors always have the exact same name as the class. So if your class, today I'm giving you an example of a class called a book. So the constructor is called book, spelled exactly the same way. Last time we had the rectangle class, and so when the constructor was it said public rectangle, and it's spelled exactly like the name of the class.
Do capitals matter for that too?
Capitals matter, yeah. Good question. Yeah, so upper and lower matters a lot. Generally, we name our classes with a capital letter in the front. That's just, it'll work if you don't, like if you make everything small, but in Java we try to do capital letters for classes. So a constructor can require one or more input variables that are called parameters. So the order and the type of the variables in a constructor are called the constructor signature. I'm going to show you in just a second exactly what I'm talking about. So, I realize this is all just a bunch of talk right now, but I'm about to flip over to Java and show you. So can I turn the page yet? Or may I turn the page? All right, I'm going to hop over. So you're going to have this in a minute. I've made a class called book, and I'm gonna make a book. So I'm gonna say, let's see, book B1. I'm gonna call it equals new book. Yeah. And I'm gonna assume when we're gonna create a book object, we want to know the title. You don't have to write this all down. That's the title of the book, that's the author of the book, and that's the year of that book. So I made it so we could just print these things today. So let's see if this works. I'm compiling. This is a great book, by the way. A Deepness in the Sky by Werner Vinge. So, science fiction.
How did it notice a year?
I put that in. I wrote this book, so it does that. You can look at it. There's code in there that adds that. Yeah. It wouldn't know. But I defined it. I made it so it would print pretty, so we didn't have to like print it pretty ourselves. We can just say print. All right. So we see the new keyword. JGrasp actually highlights it in a different color, which is great. So this is the name of the book. You could put anything there you want. I just happen to call it B1. So we're saying we're invoking the new keyword, and then I'm sending over. Notice I'm sending over the title as a piece of text. I'm sending over the author as a piece of text, and I'm sending over the year it was published as an integer. So what I was talking about over here, that a constructor can require one or more input variables called parameters. That's what these are. These are the parameters that I'm sending over, and that constructor requires that you send over the author, the title, the author, and the year. I'm going to show you though, a class can have more than one constructor. So I made a different constructor that just takes the title of the book. So I'm going to say book B2 equals new book, and this one is just taking the title. And I'll run this, and we'll see. It still prints the other one, and then now it prints title, Don Quixote, author unknown, year 0. I just made it default 0 year. This doesn't make sense, but it's fine. Couldn't very well leave the integer empty and then try to print it. So this is an example of two different constructors, and I'll show you the code for these constructors in just a sec. But one of them obviously has a signature that involves a string, and an integer, and another one has a signature that is just one string. And as you might imagine, although I'll tell you now, I've got a third one. So book B3 equals new book. This one, you send nothing over. You could say, not much of a book then, is it? But I wanted to have, who knows why you would do this? You might create a book object that has no information, and then you're like, I got to keep track. That's this book, and then we're going to figure out the author and plug it in later, that sort of thing. But if I run this, it'll compile and run. So we have the first book that we knew about. We have Don Quixote, and then finally we have title unknown, author unknown, year 0. So that's the book I want to read. But so now, if we pop over to this book.java, which, as I said, I'm going to send to you in just a second. Remember, we talked about classes and how there's attributes or data fields or variables that a class has. That's this stuff up here. We have a string for title, a string for the author, an integer for the year. And then here's that last constructor. If you call a new book with nothing in the parameter list, then you get title unknown, author unknown, year 0. Like we saw that already, but this is where it got coded. And also notice public class book, and then the constructor always is just the word public and then the name of the class. So public book is the all the constructors will have that same name. So here's the next one, public book string T. I've just defined it that string you're sending over, I did T for title. And see, inside here we're storing the thing the user sent over in the variable title. And then we're putting unknown for author, and we're putting 0 for the year. So that handled that one where I just sent one thing over. And then finally, here's the one that took all 3 arguments, parameters, string for title, string for author, and integer for the year. And then I just set them. This T and the A and the Y are just temporary variables. They're in the parameter list, but then we're storing them permanently in the variables that are inside, that we defined inside the class. So this is an example of 3 different constructors, and Java tells them apart and calls the right one based on the signature. So this is the signature, this line right here. So it says public book, and then notice it says string, int. That's obviously different from public book with just one string or public book with nothing in there. So I want to show you, it's important to know that the signatures have to be different. So I'll show you, if I try to make one that is a little bit different, like it looks different to you and me, I say string A, string T, int Y. If I try to do this and compile, we're going to get an error saying, you can't do this. String int it says it's already defined in class book. So see this, where we have a string and an int. Even though I move the variable names around down here, Java is saying you can't have another constructor that takes a string and an int. That's because it doesn't care about the variable names in here. It's just saying, when it goes to try to find the right constructor to use, it says, what do I got? I got a string, and I got a string, and I got an int. So then it finds the one that has that and uses that. It doesn't care what the variable names are called. Those are just temporary information. So we could, however, if we put the int first, we could make another one. That would work because it's totally different. It's a different order. It's an int followed by a string and a string. And so, I don't know why we would need this one when we have the other one, but I'll compile so we can see. Yeah, compile fine. I'm not going to finish writing it because we don't need it. I just wanted to show you how you can't have one with the same signature that is trying to be different. You can only have one for each signature type. And don't worry about that toString. We'll learn about that soon. I wanted to show you one other thing that can happen with constructors. I can make book before like this and not say new book. So I'm gonna run this. It's gonna compile, and it does our 3 books. It doesn't do anything with B4. B4 right now is in a weird state where it actually has a null value. I'll write that down. You should write this down. Since we didn't use the new keyword, B4 has a null value. And it's okay to write code like this. You say book B4, like it's like a placeholder right now. So it gets created in memory, but if I and I could compile this code, I can run it, and that's all fine. But watch, if I try to print it, system.out.println B4, if I try to compile this now, Java's going to say, hey, B4 might not have been initialized, it says down here at the bottom, and it won't actually run. It won't let me run. Because see, we said book B4, and we never gave the new command, which finishes creating it. And there are reasons why sometimes in one place in code you'll create an object, and then in another place you'll finish creating it with the new command. We don't need to know why right now. I just need you to know that you can do this. You can just say B4, as long as you don't try to print it or do something to it. Except the next thing you do to it has to be this. Like we could right here say B4 equals new book. We could do that. No problem. It kind of breaks it up in different lines. You have it happen in different places in your program. But until you've used the new keyword, an object will have a null value. And that's just important for you to know. All right, so at this point, we're going to stop with the notes. I'm going to email you these 2 files, and I have a request of what I want you to do with them.